New week. I'm not ready for it. I don't know about you guys, but I could use another couple of days, a weekend. But we're here. Um, it's yucky outside. It's been raining most of the weekend, so not a very happy mood today. But we're gonna we're gonna tough it out. As you can tell, I'm still suffering from the cold bugs. It's mostly just irritation on the throat and a little bit of sinus. Hopefully that doesn't cause too much problems today, but that is that. I think it's just going to be a running theme for this time of year, I guess. Let me put my tweet out. That is done. We are sorted. We're good to go. Before we get started today, I just want to remind folks that we do have a pretty important patch coming to Wednesday, I think it is. They announced that it is officially going to be the cross-faction features that are going to be coming on November 9th. Those do include cross-faction grouping, PvP arena teams, guild circles, neighbors, friends, and PvP leaderboards. The thing that's probably most significant for my gaming would be the circles and neighbors. I think the way I get it, the visitor options will work the same for cross-faction neighbors as they do for uh, faction same neighbors. So I assume that includes roommate rights and things like that. So just like with any regular neighbor, be mindful of who you give those particular privileges to. We have had a few situations where people have found themselves in some, not so nice happenings, people creating things that they, probably shouldn't have and all that kind of stuff. So just be mindful. If it's your plot and you don't want nothing happening to it, the best thing to do is just keep it to yourself. Allow people to come and visit, but don't necessarily give them rights to mess around with your decor. Now, if you're trying to do a co-op kind of project, obviously that's different. And I would assume if you're going to get into something like that with someone else, you're going to either trust them or know them personally or whatever. So just be mindful that there are consequences to allowing people access. I'm very grateful that there have been a few that have been very comfortable in allowing me those rights when it was required, but I always remind them to roommate me as soon as whatever I'm helping them with or setting up is done, because I just don't want to accidentally mess anyone's up. And so yeah, so a pretty significant change coming. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know if it means that if you're PvP marked and your visitor is PvP marked, that you guys can battle it out on your plot. I have no idea how that's going to go. As far as I know, there's still no line of sight kind of thing in housing, so it's not like you can hide behind some walls that you've placed up. We've had people wanting to do PvP arenas and stuff that actually function like an arena, where there was line of sight objects, that you could put in. But so I don't know how it works in that regard, but it should open up a lot of avenues for especially the role players that have been wanting this for a long time, so that they can, actually in a more safer, controlled environment, can carry out certain storylines and such that may involve using both factions. It's just an extra, I think, that will prove interesting. I know it's going to be easier for those of us that do visiting. Like for me, when I do the tours, I won't have to switch over to an actual Dominion character to visit the Dominion plots. So that will be helpful. It's not like it was a big mess to switch. It's just, one extra step that I don't have to do. Um, Obviously, there still will be the switching when it comes to regions, but this is, an extra little plus with the factions being kind of broken down. Now, it's not that we're doing away with factions, period, but a lot of the blockades, the general uh, divisions are kind of disappeared. It's not like they're doing away with exiles and they're doing away with dominion. There's still the fact, the differences there, but they're just making it easier for us to mix and mingle, and obviously help with like queue times for dungeons and such. So I think the community is going to really appreciate this change and use it to their best advantage. So it should be interesting to see how that goes. Um, I wouldn't doubt there's going to be some folks being a little bit against it because they want to keep it, just to their thing. And we are limited on neighbors. I know in the post that they posted, they said something about if you want to keep certain individuals out, maybe you want to keep it just purely Exiles faction on your plot. I don't think there's an option for that specifically, but that you would just invite neighbors, keep it to neighbors only or friends only or something like that. And well, with the limits for that, I don't think that's very practical, but I guess we'll see how it goes. Um, I'm sure there may be a bit of griefing that goes on. We've experienced that as folks that role play have dealt with that in their own ways. I really wish they would give us a way to just remove somebody from the plot once they're on it and if they're causing troubles, but I have yet to see any inkling of that option coming in. But I suspect that might be something that will be pushed a little harder by the community if it proves troublesome. Good morning, Poi. Anyone else that happens to be lurking around? Thank you for the hosting. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for joining me this morning. I have a few things to show you. We are back to working on some museum goodies. I was busy kind of, sort of, off and on over the weekend doodling with different things. Some of you may have seen some of the tweets that I've been putting out. For those of you that haven't been with us from the get-go this month, we are working on this month's CBDC. The theme for it is Museum Masterpieces. Again, it sounds a little rude, I guess, just to assume that whatever we might make is a masterpiece, but it was just kind of a iterated, I think it's what they call it, way of saying it. Basically, we're looking for paintings or sculptures that are under or 50 items or less. So there's a bit of a pinch as far as how much decor you can actually use in this challenge. So that does kind of pinch it a little bit. But I've been trying my best to come up with things that fit within that restriction to show you that it is possible. We've seen other people do it that didn't spend hundreds of decor like I have in the past with some of my paintings and stuff. It's just you have to think a little bit more cleverly, I guess, in what you choose to use, like with the peacocks that we did last week. There's a lot more detail I could have added, more detail on like the differences in the feathers on the body. I could have added, eyes and details on the beak and such like that. But I think when it comes to even the paintings, but especially the sculptures, it's important to focus on the main elements of your subject and narrow those down, and then just kind of whitewash the rest. Just kind of don't get caught up in the details of, if you're doing a bird or a furry animal, don't get caught up in the fur strokes or the scales of a fish or the feathers of the bird. simplify it as much as you can. That will help save you in the long run, I think, as far as hitting that 50 decor limit. So some of the things that I did over the weekend, I did try and fix the fish that we had worked on previously, and it ended up turning into a dolphin. So basically the dolphin itself is mostly Hugel statues, just different sizes and at different angles to form the body and the nose of the dolphin. For the fins, I used, I think it's glacier pieces. Yeah, glacier spires for the top fin, and same on the side fins. The side fins proved the most tricky because of the curve of the spire itself. I had to kind of flip it, and it was tough trying to find a matching angle. You can see it's still a little lopsided, but it's the best I could do with trying to keep it in the right position. Um, it's just because of the shape of the item. When you try to mirror it, it doesn't quite go the same. It's not like I can just flip it this way and have it look right. You still have to twist it a little bit. I used similar pieces. I used the step and I believe parts of the spike. I think it's mostly the step though, for the water that's coming out as he's surging out of the ocean or whatever. He's bringing that water with him, so it's just a thing. What it is I again Googled up dolphin sculptures, and if you look and happen to run across the one that I used as a reference, you'll see clearly I was really using that strongly. It's basically the same idea. I've just had to find items that I felt worked for that particular bit. It almost looks like a claw the way I've done this. It's not really meant to look like a claw. I just now noticed that it kind of looks like that because of the way it's done. But I wanted it to kind of meld sort of into his body so that your imagination would fill in the rest, that there's his tail and everything that's still in the water. So it's just a leaping dolphin coming out of the water, and of course I had to extend the pillar a little bit to cover the part of the water here. So it's a double pillar, Cassian pillar. I had to tweak it. I kept tweak. I think I had 3 different versions of this thing. My husband kept getting annoyed because I'd ask him, "Can you come over and see if this looks all right?" And then I adjust it again, and can you check it again? He was like, "What are you Are you changing anything?" I was like, "Yeah, there's like this curve that's a little off," and so I wanted this to really kind of flow the arch here as best I could. He was a little bit more straight in the beginning, and I didn't like that. I wanted to more look, like a curve. There was like an extra piece I added here because there was like this little divot, this one little divot. It just irked the crud out of me, and I ended up adding an extra. But altogether, the dolphin is, let me pull up my list here. I've been keeping track. The dolphin is 31 pieces altogether, for those curious. For those that I happen to build that are above that, obviously those won't count towards this, but it's been kind of fun to see just how far I can push it, but still stay within the limit. So again, you can see I haven't really gone into too much detail. He doesn't have any eyes. There's no line for his mouth. I didn't even put in the little, other little features you would expect. It's just the shape. It's just a straightforward shape. And of course, the glacier pieces have all their multicolorings and stuff, so that kind of helps with it. And even the Hugel statues, they have a little bit of blotching. Some of it's a little more intense green than other parts. I just let that kind of play into itself. And again, I've just kept it basic. At 30 something pieces, obviously I have a little bit of wiggle room if I wanted to add some things, but I just didn't feel it was necessary. You also see I did go back and revisit the butterfly idea. Um, it's a little psychedelic looking because of all the colors I've incorporated into it, but again, I've managed to keep it within the range of 50. It's at 30. It's 30 pieces altogether. This is basically the Hugel portraits for all of the gold outline and the antennas and even the body. The antennas is basically this thing here and just turned slightly so only one part of it is showing. The body is just the Hugel portraits on the side. And I had to use double for it so that the portrait itself wasn't showing on either side. I pushed it in as far as I could, but I wanted it to be a little bit out there, so to give it that a little bit more fullness to it. The pattern itself, I picked things that had multicolors already on them. So I used a lot of the fireworks. This one is the blue fountain one. I used it in not only the larger wings but the smaller ones. This red and orange looking part is the Cassian candle. And then I highlighted it with a little bit of the green from the green rocket. And then just a touch just to fill in a little gap that I needed, the red rocket for the white. So I just kind of let it meld the way it needed to. I'm not sure I like having this line here. I may tilt those and just leave it plain. I'll show you what I mean by that. Thinking I may do this and leave it like that. I think it just might be too much goldy stuff, and it might help define that wing a little better. I just haven't decided if that's what I want to do or not, so I'm leaving it for the time being. But the frame itself is again just those bowls. It's just two of them together to make that pattern, and then the surface, the canvas, is just the bottom of the exile lamppost. You can see it's really huge, so thankfully you have a fake, one of the interior walls to kind of push it into and not have that seen too much. I did try a polar bear. Some of you may have seen me tweeting this out, but he is unfortunately too many pieces. He ended up being 78 altogether. A lot of that was because once I made his basic shape that I had, I kept adding to it to smooth out a lot of the bits that looked a little too sudden. For example, he had this really heavy divot here, both here and here, and I had to end up adding 4 or so additional pieces just to smooth that up so it didn't look like he was, like, I don't know, sickly looking. I think it was the same with part of his neck, but mostly it was this part here, this whole area. You can see I really would probably prefer to smooth this up, but I ended up stopping just because I was afraid I was just going to keep piling it on, and I really don't want him to be too many. So I tried to use as few as I could. But you can see some of the pieces disappear, the end of his nose at this distance, and you don't see his ears till you come in pretty close. But mostly he's just ice rock pieces. It's the cornerstone bits and the arches. I didn't use any blocks, I don't think. All of it is cornerstones and arches. Even an arch for his nose, cornerstones for the very tip. The only features I gave him were, of course, his ears and the eyes and nose. The eyes and nose are the vent tanks. It's just 3 of them put together. And then, of course, I put him on the platform, and it actually ended up being two different ones. I had to extend it a little bit because he ended up a little longer than I was planning for. I had actually anticipated to put him on two. And the reason I didn't just enlarge the one is because it does have this little bit of a bump here. And you can see it kind of disrupted this part here a little bit on his foot. So it makes it look a little funny. Um, I had a real big problem with that when I enlarged it, so I just made two separate ones. So again, that was two pieces, but could have been one, would have been one fewer. Same way with some of his body. I probably, if I was smart, I could figure out how to reduce the count by a few, but I don't think I would take out like 20 plus pieces to get that down to the 50 mark. So while he was fun to build, he doesn't really fit the criteria, so I won't be using him in a museum state. I will probably be moving him to a winter plot that I am either it'll be Carrot's plot or I'll make a new one. It's one of the two. I will mention that all of the ones that I have been working on that actually fit the criteria, I have started moving those to Culantro's plot. That's my secondary art gallery. So if you want to see them in person, that'll be the place to go. Culantro, it's Kulantro, Greenleaf. For the longest, I had most of the gallery there set up. I just had a couple of paintings that got moved over, but now the sculptures are over there as well. I think it's just a 3 so far, and I'll be moving the rest at a later time, excuse me. So I've been trying to brainstorm some new ideas. Again, I was playing around with additional creatures or things that I could use that ore and fencing for. And you can see I started work on it. I don't know if you can tell what it is yet, but it's supposed to be a dragonfly. Basically, it's just a row of explosive, the Merg explosives. Some are turned one way, some are turned the other way, and of course it varies in size. The body part is a little bit bigger as opposed to the tail. And then I added a little bit of a, it's not exactly a stinger, it's just the little end of it has a little bit of a tip on it, so I used the dynamite for that. And of course the head is just two of the explosives split together. I thought it kind of looked like eyes, so I figured that would work well for the head. So you can see I even started out at a certain height, and I'll probably have to raise it up a little bit or adjust the height of the post. Excuse me. But I was working on trying to figure out how I was going to do the wings. So that's where we're going to pick up today, is working on getting this finished. I do plan to add some legs and probably antennas. I think they have antennas. I assume so. I'm really not sure. Most of the sculptures I'm looking at, some do, some don't. Some have these big googly eyes on the side, so I may have to readjust this. I don't know how we're going to do that. At first I thought I might be able to do just a completely metal version, but I couldn't think of a good way to do the wings other than using the Orin fences, so I'm just going to stick with those. I think I'm just going to treat it like I did the peacocks. They're mostly, primarily stone, but the rest is the green, and I think that might still work in this case. So the dragonflies, they have basically two sets of wings. Again, depending on your reference, some have them slightly overlapping. Some have like the front end set a little bit longer than the back set. Some have them looking like a nice, like a elongated oval, sort of, and others it's more squared on the ends. So I think it's just really your interpretation of what you feel will work. Um, so I started out with just the regular straightly angled bit, but I think we're going to change this to here. And I'm also trying to check at reference as to where about on the body these are located, you know, where they're attached. And I think it's right around like the main abdomen part or whatever you call it. So I'm hoping that this will be all right. So something like that, I think, will work okay. Now the trick is to get this to look the same over here, and you're not going to get that because remember, not only does this have a certain look when you flip it, but the curve will be different. And I'm talking mostly about this. It's not going to be the same little wave shape, I don't think. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over. It's going to be similar, but it's going to be different. See how it almost looks like he's dancing. He's waving his wings in a different rhythm. So you might even have to lower it a little bit. Oops, I think I messed that up. Let me try that again. And again, you may have to lower it a little bit because the attached part will be a little bit higher. From above, it doesn't look too different, but just the curvature is a little opposite. Now you'll notice this one is a little further out than this one, so I need to bring this one in just a little bit, kind of match that. So I'm looking at the heads of some of these. Some have the eyes in the front, some are on the side, some are just like two big giant attachments there. I don't know how I want to do this. I want to keep it metally, but I don't want to, maybe I'll just do it like this. Just turn it a little bit wider. I'm afraid he's going to look like he's cross-eyed or something. Now he looks like he's got three eyes, so I don't know if that's going to work or not. I'm not even sure if I've got it the same angle there. Let's pull these forward. Maybe that will help. Yeah, I think that helps a little bit. So now we just need the legs. So most of them showing 6. And they're very spindly looking. Some of them have little feet on the ends of them. So let's see how we want to do this. I'm going to try and find one to kind of match and then work from there. Guess we'll just go with that. Okay, so they're not like super long. Yeah, they do, Poi, and that's kind of the thing. One of the reasons why I wanted to carry that over to many of these projects that we're working on for this month, to show you that you know, you might find one particular item and discover that you can use it in a multitude of ways and have it work nicely for each way. So we've seen it as feathers, now we've got it as wings. I'm sure there's somebody, if they wanted to add hair to a sculpture of a head, this would work well for hair, um, or a dress, or uh, maybe you want to do some kind of a flower, some kind of plant um, sculpture of some sort. I'm sure this would work well for petals. You can make an umbrella out of it. There's all sorts of ideas I'm sure people could come up with for this. Just that one single piece. And you know, maybe you find something else that you really like maybe one of the glacier pieces, and you decide to use that throughout. That would be kind of fun to kind of have you stick with the same bits. I'm not saying that you should do it like me and make everything like that, but it would be fun. It's kind of like when we had the skirt from the party tent. We ended up using it not just for the party tent, but a hat and a skirt, and I've used it for a couple of other things. It's just uh, fun to see things, the same item in multiple uses. Again, it's part of the fun of housing. So, okay, so I think I'm just going to just use some pillars. And I think we'll go with the 201 since they're kind of the same coloring as the Merg explosives. So we're going with a theme of he's mostly metal, but his wings will be the green bit. It even helps make them stand out. And that particular piece is so delicate looking. I think it works okay. So let's see. Is it like straight out or a little angled down? Looks like a little angled down. So first, I'm going to square this up, and we're going to size it down. And I think this will be a little bit too big. I'm going to need a little finer than that. Let's try half that size. I'm wanting to get away with being able to use just maybe 2 pieces for each leg. I think that would be perfect, but I don't know if I'll be lucky enough for that or not. So, trying to see in what part of the body these things are attached to as well, if it's the same part as the wings or if it's a different part. I think it's the same. So we want them kind of around this area. Get around here so I can see what in the world I'm doing. Let's see, let's make this one the center one, the center set. Let me switch this. Okay, now it'll work like I'm wanting it to. I'm going to try and bring it out about the same as the other side. And then they're kind of, there's some that have it angled out this way, some that have it angled this way. I think we'll go with this way just to make it a little like he's flying. Now I could just simply make a copy set of this and then copy it over both pieces, but just going to do it by hand. Hey Aurora, good morning, and hope you enjoy your coffee. I don't really drink coffee myself. I'm more of a tea person. Okay, so that's one set. So for this one, we'll go ahead and do the copy thing. Let's see, museum, what's this thing called? Dragonfly. Say new. We're gonna add this leg to that. Oops. Oh, clear that again. I added it twice. There we go. And now let's make the front end one, and I'm gonna angle it a little bit. See which way should I do that? This, oops. I think that'll work okay. And then another. And angle it this way. We're going to push it in just a little bit so that that end of the pillar is hidden. I think it's pretty hidden on all the rest as well. So there you have half of his leglies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this set. Clear, add link set. So for this one, we're going to check where I positioned these. It was at 135. Okay. I'm hoping I can set it around the same. I don't know what angle I did it at, but we'll just kind of get it close. I could check the angle, but we're not going to go to that. 169 for that pair. And then that one was angled a little outward the other way. And we pushed it in a little bit. So there we go. Now we have his legs. So now I have to ask myself, is there anything else I might could do or change? Basically, those are the elements. For Dragonfly, mostly it's having the segmented body and tail parts, the legs, the big eyes, and the wings. Those are, I think, the primary bits. I'm not getting into any kind of fancy coloring. I'm not worried about, you know, a lot of the wings, some of the people have like made in some kind of elaborate design, kind of like a butterfly wing. I'm not going to worry about that. It's just the notion that these are those delicate little crispy wings that they have. So now the big thing is to try and get all this linked together, and then count how many pieces we've got in use. I think we're pretty safe. I don't feel like we've used a whole lot. I kind of knew, I could tell by just how much I kept adding and adding with the polar bears that I was going over the limit, but I wasn't sure by how much. It's really not too terribly bad. 78, that's pretty good. I think if you can stay under 100 for a particular item that you're trying to put together, um, for like an art piece of some sort, I think that's doing pretty good, because you can fit in several of those in a regular build. But when you start getting into the multiple hundreds, you're pushing it, because it's, it's kind of like the thing, I forget who it was. I want to say it was either Nexus Cupcake or one of the others. They were talking about how they were comparing like this little twig of a Christmas tree to this full-blown, just huge, fully, flush pine tree with all these decorations and stuff, and saying, they feel like the left one is theirs and the right one is someone else's. And I was trying to explain how both, I think, are great in their own ways, because when it comes to everyday housing for people having their personal residences, or maybe it's a club or something, they're already putting an extreme amount of work and detail in getting those buildings and the living quarters and their kitchen and all of that set up. So when you have something that's super elaborate, like I'm trying to think, like one of the paintings I have is of landscape. It's, I think, two or 300 pieces. That's not very practical. A piece that's under 100, or even better, 50 or less, that's more practical. So that means more people could actually use it. Say you were someone that was trying to sell your builds, your little projects, to other people to use on their plots. If your item, like say one of those lovely flower pianos, is 1,000 pieces, that's not as practical as someone that might can make something just as pretty but use a fraction of the amount, because once they install that 1,000 piece decor set, that doesn't leave them very much room to fill up the rest of the place. So while these projects that we do for the CBDC often aren't very practical, um, uh, it's it's still a good exercise to allow yourself the freedom to go that crazy with it. Just understand that in general terms, a lot of these things that we build, you just wouldn't want, or you couldn't apply that to a plot. It's like these museum pieces, because we're restricted to the 50. I'm going to be able to fit quite a few into the museum plot that I have. But if I just grabbed some of my stuff that, well, like the one on Carrot's plot, I've run out of space because so many of them are huge in amount. Um, uh, it's not practical to be able to collect all of them on a single plot. So that's why I have them spread out over many plots, because there's just no way to put them all onto a single one. And so I appreciate those that maybe can make a car in 10 items, whereas it takes someone else, 75. That 10 item car is, in my eyes, more practical, because it's fewer pieces, it still looks good, and it's usable by just about anyone. I hope that makes sense. It's not that I'm dissing those that make 1,000-piece items. I think those are incredible too, but they're really just kind of more for show than for practical use. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does or not, but anyway, that's me trying to say that even if you're using fewer pieces and you don't think it looks as awesome as someone else's, really yours has, I think, a more reasonable assumption that it can be used by more people, that kind of thing. Okay, so I think nope, I'm still missing a piece. Let me try that again. Yeah, the little back of his head there. Okay, so I think that's all of them. We're going to raise it up. I'm going to move him over a little bit. I think it makes a little bit more sense to have that pole a little bit more in the, not necessarily his chest part, but more the back end of his body. I'm not exactly happy with this part here. I think the change is a little too big, so to solve that, I think I'm just going to add an extra piece. Bring that down. I'm going to tilt it up. This is kind of what I did with that dolphin. I just changed it slightly to make it a little bit better, smoother. That's an extra piece for that. Okay, so there's our dragonfly. Let's see what the total ends up being. We'll clear this. Oh, right, I still need to add the podium, the holder pieces. So that is a whopping total of 34. I'll write that down so I can add it to my list. Now, I didn't require people to tell me specifically the pieces that they're using, the exact number, but if you want to include that in your submissions, if you're going to be participating in this month's CBDC, feel free. It's just like a little bit of trivia for those that are curious as to know how many exactly pieces that you use. You don't have to break it down, well, I used 2 2x4s and 4 of this and 20 of that. You don't have to go that far. Just say a total. This is, 47 pieces or something like that, or if it's exactly 50, that kind of thing. So 34 for the dragonfly. But it's not required. If you don't want to tell, that's fine. Just, we're going on the assumption that it's 50 or less. Because if green decides to use it and it's more than that, I'll be hearing it. So be sure you at least be true to that specific requirement, because if it's over 50, green won't use it. So. Okay, so there's the dragonfly. You'll notice I did tilt the tail down a little bit, so I wanted to give it as close to a semi-realistic look as I could, but not. I mean, I'm sure you could do it differently, use different pieces. You could probably use the globe things that we had, the files. That would probably make a nice, pretty, bright blue uh, dragonfly, and then instead of having to use that extra piece for the tip, the head of it would probably work. In fact, let's just play around. Let's see if we can make a different one. I always use the tall one. I don't know why. I have used the short one. I used it for one of my bird paintings, but I don't know. It just seems more awkward sometimes for some of the things that I'm wanting to use it for. So this is kind of how I did this. I just got it set up straight. And I started with just one as the head, and then I enlarged it a bit. Oops, guess I gotta make a copy of it first, don't I? And then decided about how big I wanted the chest part to be. This is going to be more bulby, almost like a caterpillar. That would be another good one for this particular use, for this particular item, I should say. And I think I just made a couple of extensions to part of the body. I just modified the size just to give it a little bit of difference. And then made it distinctly smaller for the tail part. Oh, maybe not that small. Notice I turned the thing because I don't want to keep extending this little tail part out. I want it to finally finish. And then these get a little bit smaller towards the end. Now, if you want this angled down, you're going to have to change how these are positioned to get that to angle down. You probably have to change a few of them because the tips of them are actually showing. So this one will have to angle down as well. Like so. You can see it's a little bit showing right here. So that's one of these back end ones. So you just have to angle them up to get that hidden. So now you have a bluish looking dragonfly body. Notice it's a little smaller. I didn't go as long and elaborate as this one. I'm using probably fewer pieces for it as well. And then for the eyes, just use another one. Let's see. Maybe that'll be an okay size. Made sure that to angle a little bit so that the stem isn't showing. For the legs, you maybe use, I don't know if you can get away with, let's try this. I don't know if it's going to work because then you'll have this really big fat joint there, but we'll try it anyway. We'll put one right about here. Let's get that straightened up. And let's knock that down to so it's not quite, it's going to be a little weird with the little joint there, but I think you get the idea. You can make it all blue. Now the wings are another story. I would probably just cheat and stick with the green, but just for ease sake. But you might could come up with trying to think if there's anything bluish. Maybe the streamers. They're kind of bluish, sort of, not quite. We'll just put this out here for playing around, but you know, I'm trying to stick with the blue theme. Let's see. We'll say dragonfly. Oops. We'll say blue dragonfly. There we go. New. Add linked set. We're gonna kind of angle that one this way. Something like that. We're just going to completely do this way. Change it, replicate it. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing about where they are on the body. Sort of in the same spot. Oh, wait, gotta turn this way. Something like that. Probably not exact because I wasn't really checking the positions or anything, but you get the idea on that. So then you have the wings. Probably the best would be to use this big hunky thing as the attachment to the body. And that'll help judge on the size of the wing. So I'm just kind of centering it on this body piece, and then we'll leave it like so. And then we've got two of them, so you got one here. If you have any issues with it blinking because it's directly overlapping, then just maybe sink one down a little lower, and that'll help hide that a little bit. Let's see, what angle is this? Just give it a round number. This one is 85. Oh, that didn't. Try that again. There we go. So there's yet another dragonfly. Trying to keep with the blue. There's probably other things that you could use, but I think that's kind of all right. Maybe it looks a little too long for the size of. Maybe I need to extend this a little bit. Let's do that. Let's hook these up together. May have to do some additional adjustment. It just looks too short to me. Put it out about there. Looks right, I think. Move these back up. And we'll just add an extra in here that's a little bit smaller. Oops, I think I just moved that completely out of line. If it's not as pronounced as you'd want and you can't like really enlarge it too much, just add a couple of extras to make it a little wider, like so. It's not the same as having a bigger end, but if you want it to be a little bit more noticeable, that's no biggie. Now we just need to fill in his body here. There we go. I think that looks a little bit more proportional. Maybe I made it a little bit too long now. But anyway, I think maybe it's this too. This may need another extra part. That seems a little short, but let's try this. There we go. That feels better to me. Make this just a little bit smaller. Yeah. So now we have 2 dragonflies, super quick. So it's not just the oran things that you have to use as the wings. It's really not like exactly, but the indication that those are the wings. You don't have to have something. You don't have to try and fashion like the graded marauder shelf or something. The one that's got all of the holes, like the chicken wire stuff. You don't have to try and use that to represent this nice, delicate wing. You could, if you wanted, design a wing using maybe some of the hanging cables. That's just going to use a lot of the pieces up. If you manage to keep it to maybe 20 to each wing, that's 40 for a pair. That adds up pretty quick. So you'd have to keep it. Well, if you only made it 10 pieces for one little wing, then you have to multiply that by 4. That's 40. So that only leaves you 10 for the body, which includes the legs and everything. So I just don't think that would be practical, especially for this particular challenge where you're limited by the item count that you're permitted. So it would be better to find things that um, kind of resemble a wing, and the streamers come to mind. I'm sure there's some other things. Um, Trying to think. There might be some of the antennas and such. I wouldn't go with lighting because that's just a little weird, and you don't want to encroach on Green's lighting count, because I'm sure they're using that for spotlighting on certain museum exhibits and stuff. But trying to think. Um, Accents might be the best place to look. I think the reason I jumped to Orin really fast for a lot of this frilly stuff is because, they're naturey. There's a lot of curly bits, but like you could get really gross and do a strain version maybe. I don't know what that is. You might could even use the spears, just the pair, and that gives you 2 wings in one go. That would be interesting. So like, let's see, what would you use for a kind of a weird body? Trying to think, like maybe there's a pillar I have. Want something drake-y, I guess. I wouldn't be able to use this, I don't think, because it's so skinny. You'd have to use like a ton of those to make up the body. And if you did it this way, then you'd have to do double just to get it so it doesn't look like he's kind of a flat looking thing. I suppose you could do it that way. Let's try that. We'll just make him a really skinny looking thing. So like, pick a size for his chest here. And get that squared away. And like a smaller one for his head. Hey Maggie, glad you could join. I know I'm not ideal for all you NAers. Try it this way. Notice the pillow is not, it doesn't stay straight in position, so I have to adjust it every time. And again, it's probably not an ideal item. I'm just going with it because I said I would, and so I'm going to stick with it. So we're going to extend this out a little bit. This would be good for like a gator if somebody wants to, it makes it look like the spikies on the gator's tail. That's what this reminds me of. And thank you, Poi, for such a great moderating job, sending out all those little reminders. Very helpful. Okay, and for the eyes, we'll just use a pillow and we'll flip it. We're just going to give an indication that there's something there. I'm trying to get away with as few pieces as possible, if you can tell. Let's knock that down. It almost looks like this reminds me of a chameleon as well, or one of those little iguana things. Okay, and then for the wings, I would just take this, let's square it up first. We're going to size it down just a little bit. I think that'll be a good size. Welcome back, Aurora. And then we'll put this in the body part, the main body part. Then we're going to turn it this way. I think I want the longer wing at the front. Then we're going to flip it. And you see it's slightly different from the other way because of the angles of the spears themselves. You can see even it's a little, so you just have to make little adjustments to make it look, match it a little better. And now we have this drakened up lizard looking uh, thing. Now for the legs, I would probably go with, you probably could use just the single spears. I think it's the pointy something, pointy draken, pointy totem. You could probably go with those for the legs. Shrink them down quite a bit. Put one right in the middle. And then the same piece for and notice I'm going to go ahead and leave this. I'm not going to put it exactly at the right spot. Otherwise, I think it's going to look a little too big. But he's an unusual creature, so maybe he has a little spike on the joint, so do it like that. So it keeps into the theme of using all Draken materials. You don't have to do that way. There's probably other things that look more Draken-y than just Draken stuff. There's Falkren and Pell and other types of things. You could probably use barrels for the bodies. Those would be good ones. Any of the roundish type containers would probably work really good. I wouldn't go with anything blocky. It's not to say that you can't, but personally I would stick with roundish type of things. Let's go ahead and finish him. I feel weird not. So let's add Draken Dragonfly. New. Link this to that. Let me deselect that. And then another set. Looks ready for battle. That's what he looks like. Well, or I really don't know. I just kind of have a wandering thinking pattern, I guess. You know, there's tons of ideas I've had, and I just can't figure out how I want to build it, and then I move on to something else. I don't dwell on it. If I feel like I'm hit a block, I just move on to something else. That's basically what I do. But when it comes to something like this, if I'm able to build it in one way, then I start thinking, well, surely I can do it in other ways. So that's what this comes from. I just find other things that I think would work. And you know, my goal for this show is basically to try and help you guys see that you don't have to use the same items. You know, it's like faux doors. In the beginning, it was always certain objects that were faux doors, like the dividers or the tabletops, things like that. And as we show more and more how people change that up, I think people have become more creative in the combinations of items or even the items that they use, period, for their doors, because they realize they don't have to stick with those same things. Because, you know, depending on your decor theme, the colors that you're using, the lighting that you're using, that can change your need for a particular color or shape or whatever. So, or textures even. So it's always fun to just try multiple ideas. Oh, hush, boy, you can do this stuff. I've seen it. You can't fool me. Okay, making a copy of the other side. Let's see. I'm just kind of guessing where these things are. Gonna have to push this in a little bit, looks like. Up. Again, remember these things are a little awkwardly angled, so push this in and down, I think. Last set of leggies. He looks like he's a little bit more angled back this way. There we go. Something like that. It's pretty close. So you got this little dainty thing, and then this almost robotic looking one, and then this really native looking thing. It's pretty funny looking. Yeah, or that's kind of what I was talking about before. Like, I think there was a comparison between your tricycle with the saw puppet on it and then the tricycle that someone else made. And like I said, the way you build yours with such great detail and stuff, it's amazing. And it just shows how artistic and creative you are in combining the items, adding in all those extra little bits that a lot of people wouldn't think about adding. But as you point out, it's not practical because basically it eats up all your decor count just for that, you know, little pizzazz. Whereas the tricycle that the other person made, I think just looking at it, it looked maybe 5, 10 pieces max. Maybe it's probably more closer to the 5. To me, that's a type of build that is what I consider more practical. More people could use it. If someone else wanted a tricycle for maybe a playground area or a circus thing or whatever, they could say, hey, can I use that particular pattern or something similar for mine? And that would again be something more easily to translate over than to try and mimic what you've built. It's just it's fantastic, but it's beyond the reach of the general population. I think it's not that I don't think everybody couldn't learn to do that, but again, because of the decor limits, just in general, I'm not even talking about this 50 decor limit for these little projects we're doing this month. Just in general, it just doesn't make sense. Like I said, my goal for Carrot's plot was to use that bunker house as a display room for all of this paintings and artwork and stuff I've been making, but I ran out of room, so it looks half empty because there's just no way I can squeeze it all in there because of how many pieces I used. So this little project, this month's CBDC has really made me focus more on trying to limit what I use, but still achieve a pretty good as long as I think as long as it's recognizable as what you're intending it to be, you don't have to have all those details. And I think from here on, I'll probably, I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to simplify everything, but I think like the polar bear, he ended up being well over the 50, but I think for what he is and how I was putting him together, I think I did fairly decent on keeping him as limited as possible. But it really does make you play around with things you probably normally wouldn't in certain ways because you're limited. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I just hope that I can, in sharing my, you know, struggles with certain pieces or the ideas, the examples that I use, I hope that helps spur ideas for you guys. Because like I said, just taking that Orin piece, yes, I've used it as wings, yes, I've used it as feathers. You could do the same thing. Maybe you'll find another winged creature or another feathered thing that you want to use. Um, uh, but there's other things you could use it for, like I said, umbrellas, skirts of a dress, um, the hair of somebody. If someone's wanting to do like a mermaid kind of figure, I'm sure this or the mossy overgrowth or even the regular green overgrowth would probably work nicely. The only thing about the overgrowths is they do move. So again, when it comes to paintings and sculptures and stuff, moving items, I probably try to avoid those more often than not. I have used them mostly out of desperation because they can't find anything else that really works for it, you know, be it because of the color or the shape or whatever, but I tend to steer from those because it does alter things a little bit. Of course, if you're actually looking for something that's moving, like the eye or something, then that's different, but generally speaking, I try to find stationary items. 526 for oh, you talking about the sand shoe made out of snow? Yeah, that's well, I've tried to, you know, whenever I build something, I usually mention how many pieces. It's like that house, that faux house. It ended up being as much as if I had actually made it an enterable house, you know, a functional one. It was just crazy how many pieces I ended up using, but you know, I just wanted to experiment with it, and that's part of the fun too, is just trying different things. Oh, you guys. Okay, so we've tried three different dragonflies. Started on one, and we made two more from scratch. So I think that's a pretty good um, variety of examples of how you can take one idea and think, can I make it out of different parts? It's kind of like what Bucky does with the vehicles. He's made so many different ones. But I mean, like taking a car and then changing it to make it look like a different model kind of car, or made it out of different materials, and it completely changes the way you look at it. You know, maybe one looks like a classic car, and another one looks like a cop car, and another one looks like a military vehicle. A lot of it is just the items you use. Like I said, this looks like a nature one, almost looks like a flying carrot now that I'm looking at it. Um, but this is more robotic looking because of the blue, I think. And this is more like, this looks like it's a war dragonfly or a native looking one. It's really kind of scary looking. But that again can play into, you know, choose your pieces based on how you're wanting it to be seen, how you're wanting it to be interpreted. Again, a lot of the things I make, I may think it's okay, and then someone else goes, well, I think I could make it better, look at it different. You know, like my golden rooster, someone else may come up with a much more colorful version and still use the tail and have it look completely different, better, worse. I don't know. Tomorrow we'll probably try and work on this. I don't know if you can tell what it is yet, but I started it this morning, and I'm going to see if I can follow through on it and keep it within the 50 decor. If it turns out that I can't, I'm still going to finish it, but we'll see if we can make it work. I've been working heavily on trying to find the right colored items and things, so that should be interesting for tomorrow. Um, but yeah, yes, you were right, Aurora. It is an eye. Just got started on the main part of it. I'm working on the eyelids bit now, so we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you had fun, and you know, maybe this gave you some food for thought on some pieces that you didn't consider using and that you might try to use now. Again, I haven't heard too many people actually working on projects for this month. I do have a couple of entries from an NA player, Seraphin, I think it was, that posted in our thread about it. So we've at least got that much. So I'm excited that we've already started getting some entries. Don't feel too pressured if you just can't come up with something. You know, don't fret over it. There's always next month if you can't think of anything for this one. Um, but if you have the time and feel like giving it a try, I strongly encourage it. It's proven really interesting and challenging, for me at least, in trying to come up with things that work for the project, but are still interesting and different and unique enough to warrant showing them to you guys. So again, appreciate everyone that's dropped by, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and good luck with anything that you're building, whether it's for the challenge or not. Of course, be prepared for Wednesday's maintenance and the incoming cross-faction stuff. I think that's going to be pretty exciting. I hope it proves very, a great move for housing, especially not just for builders, but for RPers that use those creations for their little outings and gatherings and stuff. So yeah, in the meantime, have fun, have a great day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.